Hi folks, Tim from ABC Acres here in Hamilton, Montana. Today is Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. It's my father's birthday. He would have been 78 years old today, so happy birthday, Dad. If you saw last week's part 1, we were talking about the tree belts and site evaluation, how we came up with the design. So check it out if you didn't, because we're going to build on that today. I'm out at tree belt 3 of that design, and today we're going to be talking about some of the infrastructure and what we're doing to maintain the tree belts season after season. Let's dive right in. The fencing, as you can see, we used basically wooden posts and rails. We've got these tall 12-foot posts that we have 4 feet in the ground, roughly 8 feet tall. We had to go that high because we have multiple levels of positive and negative barbless wire fencing for purposes of keeping out the deer and elk herds. If we were just going to be concerned about cattle, we would have only gone with the woven fencing and then maybe one topped hot wire or positive wire for purposes of just cattle. But because here in Montana we can get 120 head of elk in here season to season, we needed to protect our trees, and so we went ahead and took that up. And again, just a 12-foot post every 40 feet with the smaller 6-foot posts after that. So 12-foot post, 6, 6, 6, 12, repeating that pattern just so we could get the fencing to be adhered the way we needed it to. Outside of the wooden fencing, we did use the field fence or woven fence. We use, it doesn't really matter, you can use 2x4 no climb. Really any type of fencing will work. You'll notice we have the bigger sections here, the smaller sections down below, but we're not too concerned with rabbits or any smaller ground animals getting in or out of the tree belts. It's not a concern with regards to predation or any negative effect on the trees themselves. Outside of that, and going beyond the fencing, the wood and woven wire fencing, we have got hot wire on this, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We use a Staffix Energizer. I believe it's a 13 joule Energizer. Some of the Energizers are all rated differently depending on the amount of footage that you're trying to cover with the electric shock. So the Staffix Energizer pulses an electric shock through the positive line on a second basis, pop, 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 and anything touching the electric line and grounded with the ground will receive that shock. We went with a heavy, with a larger joule capacity, 13 joules, because we've got a lot of positive lines we need to power. At the same time, we're moving livestock day to day, and these are big animals, and so to correct them, we need a pretty sizable shock reminder. If you're doing smaller animals, you can get by with a smaller Energizer. If you're doing a smaller footprint, you can get by with a smaller Energizer. So look at your context. Again, going back to last week's video, take a look at our video and just see the size of our tree belts in conjunction with the 8-acre pasture. You can see why we went to such a large Energizer size. One of the things we did put in are these switches on the corner of each one of our tree belts. It allows us to turn off the power so I can touch the positive line and not be grounded. This is good when we're doing any work on the tree belts. Occasionally you will get a deer or an elk that will try to get in and they'll immediately get rebuked, but sometimes it'll tear off the holdings or the staples and there needs to be repairs. And for other reasons, if we just need to turn it down or turn it off, we can get in there. And so again, on it goes. We'll touch that and get zapped, and it hurts. It hurts. It'll numb the fingers. It'll numb the arm for half an hour. But year after year, you tend to do it 3 or 4 times a season. You never do learn. As you get into your design, one of the things we really liked about this, we have the hot wire right at this rung above our woven wire. What this allows us to do is, using our poly wire to control our cattle, we can hook the hook of the poly wire onto this and then take our poly wire across the pastures, and that's what heats our paddocks. So we can move them day after day, and we just pull it up and move it to the next one. So this is a neat feature from that standpoint. Why don't we quickly take a look at the Energizer itself. So what we're looking here is the Staffix Energizer that we use. you'll notice the colored LCD display in the top right. Every time that is pulsing, it is shooting an electrical charge along the positive exposed wire. It's currently reading about 8 joules as opposed to its potential 12. I said 13 earlier. It's actually a 12 joule system. I apologize. The reason we're getting a drop of about 4 joules is we're getting some grounding around the fencing, and ultimately that is grass that has grown up 4 or 5 feet, and some of the grass is now hitting that lower positive line, as well as some of our trees of our tree belts have gotten so big that they're dangling over the edge on the positive. So we do get a little bit of draining there, and seasonally we will go in and clean this up and maintain the integrity so we get the charge that we so desire. Very easy. We've got the positive line that goes out through an insulated hot wire to the belts, and then we take the insulation off and run the exposed wire for purposes of hooking up or delivering the charge. And then we have the ground wire. The ground wire is grounded here at the shed, but also runs in parallel with our insulated positive at that junction point I showed you with the red trigger where we can turn it on or off. We also do a ground through that location at each tree belt to maximize the grounding and thereby maximizing the shock value when the hot wire is triggered. So there's a picture of the Energizer by Staffix, to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. We have one here on the north side of the property. We also have another one on the south side of the property, so they feed both sides where and when the cattle are. I'm now actually at tree belt 2, picking up the video. Again, same concept, the same location, the junction of the hot and the ground. And so as you can imagine, this insulated line runs underground from belt to belt to belt. The insulated line comes up, and then we have the exposed line to carry the charge. I wanted to show you this from this image, just because behind me, I'm jonesing right now on black locust trees. So we have a black locust, and bear in mind when we planted this, as I mentioned last video, spring of 2014. Well, it's August of 2018, 4 years. 4 years in the ground. We started this as a 3.5 foot width. It's a 16-foot tall black locust in 4 years. Remember that. That's going to be the theme for another video in a couple of weeks. Awesome. So, how do we irrigate these trees? Great question. To my left side, I'm not going to show you it, but we have a well here. It's a well punched in the ground. It feeds 32 gallons of water a minute, attached to a pressure tank, and then from there it's routed through our irrigation system. Let's take a look at that. So we're back in the pump shed again. Working off of the well, we have an irrigation control panel. And so this is just your standard Rainbird control panel. This is the, as you can see, SPLXME model, for whatever reason they name it that out. Gosh darn it. Holy smokes. Just got stung on my left ear by a yellow jacket. Ooh, does that hurt? It built a nice little nest in that pump shed. And I honestly believe here in Mother Nature, God's country, whatever you want to call it, every living species has its place. And I've not wanted to take that down, because I never go in the pump shed at 2 in the afternoon. But hey, now you do and you get stung. So anyway, I'm back out in the field. And know that those yellow jackets will remain nice and safe until the cold winter season takes its course. Bugger. So that's a Rainbird irrigation controller. You can get them various manufacturers, various sizes. That one can hold up to 36 zones. We have 18 zones in these tree belts, 18 different lines of trees. So it's very simple for us to set that up. It runs 4 zones, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and another 2 on Friday. Each tree getting roughly 2.5 hours of water once a week. So we like to water long and deep once a week so the roots are continually making their way further down into the ground. Thereby, hopefully in time, we can back off the irrigation and they can survive long-term times of drought with just natural precipitation feeding them. Let's take a step inside the tree belt. I'll show you the valve box. All right, so here's a control box that I made, a custom control box that I made just for all the different valves. I think you can probably get a view there. Nothing fancy. We have 6 valves. They're 1-inch lines controlled by that control box. So when it signals this particular zone, 1 through 6, to fire, the solenoid opens up, the valve kicks on, the water makes its way through the line, whether it's a few hundred feet or 500 feet, runs it for that period of time, and then when it moves on to the next zone, it shuts it. So again, this is something that I put together, very simple, working with your local irrigation company, and they'll show you how to do it. At the same time, there are services out there that can do it for you. Here we are looking at a beautiful maple tree, one of many maple trees in the tree belts. But as we pan down and we look at the base of the tree, you will notice the blue irrigation sprinkler. This is a micro sprinkler. That's my phone. How rude. This is a micro sprinkler with a blue tip. It sprays a 2-foot radius, 4-foot diameter. This is what we use to water our trees. Very easy for us to visually check 2 or 3 times a year, to walk by and make sure they're firing, nothing's got in them. At the same time, you can see some other things going on, but that's a subject for next week's video. So today we talked a little bit about our fencing, a simple wooden post rail fencing with woven underneath along the bottom half. We showed you a glimpse of our Staffix Energizer and the simplicity of the positive negative lines, both insulated and not, to ensure protection of the planting project, as well as how we can use it as a hookup point for our hot wire systems. And then we also touched briefly just on our very simple irrigation system, from the controller to the valves and to the 4-foot micro sprinkler emitters. These are very simple systems. They can be done by the most inexperienced of folks, or can be done for a few dollars by your local professional. But that's the extent of the infrastructure that it took for us to set up the tree belts. Next week, we're going to dive into the tree belts. We're going to talk about our tree systems, what we designed, how we designed, and why we designed the trees for short-term, mid-term, and long-term succession and abundance. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. Happy growing. Have a great week. Take care.